So, I've been using the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 for about 2 weeks now, and honestly, this feels like the first Samsung device, foldable smartphone from Samsung, that doesn't totally feel like a compromise except for one thing, which I don't really like. So before we jump in, let me be completely honest. This smartphone costs about $2,000. I got this 512 gigs of storage and 12 gigs of RAM for 2.915 million naira here in Nigeria. And this is not just iPhone 16 Pro Max money, it's way more than that. This is, I need to think about this purchase kind of money. The big question here is this worth your money? And can you live with the Z Fold 7 as your daily driver? I've got answers for you, and some of which might surprise you. And so without taking much of your time, yo guys, let's get started. Now this smartphone, the Z Fold 7, is a glow up from last year's Z Fold 6. The Z Fold 7 is 26% thinner when closed and is basically the same thickness as your regular Galaxy S25 Ultra, which is 8.2mm compared to 8.9mm. And when you open this smartphone up, it's thinner than most wallets out there. I'm not even exaggerating this. But here's the crazy part. It's also lighter than most smartphones. It weighs lighter than the S25 Ultra, and even though this smartphone has 2 screens and this hinge mechanism inside, that's some serious engineering magic right here. This smartphone is now noticeably more difficult to open unlike previous generations, and that's because it's slimmer and has less material to grip onto because of how thin it is. For the first time ever with a Fold, I genuinely forgot I had a Fold, and that brings me to 2 things. Previous Folds felt chunky and heavy, and you always knew they were there. But this one just feels like a normal phone in your hand until you need it to become a tablet. The Fold 7 is actually IP48, meaning great water resistance, but the dust resistance won't match flagship devices because of the foldable display, and that is understandable. And that brings me to the front screen. Samsung finally nailed the size. It's 6.5 inches now, which means you can actually type comfortably without feeling cramped. And that has kept a lot of people like myself using the front display most of the time without having to go to the inner screen. I have to consciously make effort to open this display and use this internal 8-inch panel on here. So let's get into the stuff you really want to know about. When you open this thing, you get an 8-inch display. And to put that in perspective, that's bigger than the iPad Mini 7's display. The quality on here is gorgeous, bright, colorful, and yes, there's still a crease on this display. But you honestly stop noticing this after about a day or 2. Now here's where it gets fun. I can watch YouTube videos on this display side by side using a text editor, and you can also have your email picking in from the side. It sounds gimmicky until you actually do it and need this. And then you realize that this is how smartphones which are meant for productivity should work. Now the truth is, I'm not one to do a lot of things with smartphones, but using this for the past 2 weeks has introduced me to that world where I tend to benefit from it, and I can see how power users can benefit from this type of multitasking arrangement on a bigger display like this one. At the end of the day, the outer display is so good that I only open this smartphone when I specifically want that big screen experience. And I also think that's the sweet spot Samsung has been aiming for. So Samsung finally gave the Z Fold the camera it deserves. This main camera on here is a 200 megapixel sensor, the same we have on the S25 Ultra. The photos are sharp, the contrast is right, and the colors look natural, not overly saturated like some other Samsung devices. And here's a cool little trick if you want to take amazing selfies with the smartphone. All you have to do is open the smartphone and use the outer screen as your viewfinder while taking photos, selfies with the main 200 megapixel camera on the Z Fold 7. I know this isn't a new trick, but I hope this helps someone who is looking to get a foldable device. Samsung has done away with the lower 4 megapixel under display camera for the inner display and now replaced it with the 10 megapixel cutout camera. You can also prop this up like this and take hands-free photos or videos. It's like having a built-in tripod wherever you go. The one camera that's still just okay is the zoom camera on this smartphone. It's decent for 3x zoom, but if you're used to the crazy zoom on the S25 Ultra, you might miss that. For most people though, it's totally fine. The ultra-wide camera photos are usable, but doesn't get as good dynamic range as the main camera, which is expected. Video recording goes up to 8K with the main camera on the smartphone, which is the 200 megapixel sensor, while other sensors max out at 4K. You get the good colors which are punchy, and it does a good job if you ask me. Video stabilization is also something I really do like about the smartphone. Look, I'm not going to tell you this is a perfect smartphone because it's not. I'm going to share with you some of the things that really bothered me in my day-to-day use with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Here's the thing about the battery life. It's good enough, but just barely. I could get through most days, but there were definitely times I was looking for a charger before 5 p.m. Samsung kept the same 4400 mAh battery from last year, And while it lasts a solid 5-hour screen on time for me, that's not really solid in my opinion. I was actually averaging 7-hour screen on time with this device, although I had better days and also had some worse days, and it all depended on the activities I had used the smartphone for in those days. And the charging speed here is still stuck at 25 watts, which means it takes over an hour to fully charge this smartphone. In 2025, for a $2,000 smartphone, that feels pretty slow. Secondly, there's this wobble, which even though isn't a big issue, is worth pointing out. The camera bump makes this smartphone wobble like crazy when it's on a table. If you want to quickly reply a text on a table without picking the smartphone up, good luck, because it's honestly kind of annoying in that instance, although a case will completely fix this issue. In my testing, the smartphone can get warm during heavy use, like a heavy gameplay, which is usually interesting with this big display. I also noticed that the screen would dim faster than the previous Fold when recording video outside or in direct sunlight. It's not unusable, but it's something to be aware of if you're planning to get this smartphone and use it heavily outdoors. Samsung also removed the S Pen support to make the Fold maybe a little thinner, and if you're someone who relied on the stylus for notes taking or maybe drawing, that's a legit reason to skip this one or stick to your older Fold device. I see no reason why a notebook like this one, a tablet device, has no support for S Pen. It makes no sense in my opinion. Now let's talk about AI. Every smartphone company is shoving AI down our throats these days, right? But some of Samsung's features are actually useful, most of them actually. The photo editing tool is pretty impressive here. You can remove objects, add things, or clean up backgrounds right on this smartphone. The side-by-side editing view takes advantage of the big screen, and you can see your original photo on the left and the edited version on the right side. Also, Gemini integration is everywhere, and honestly, having that big screen, this one on here, makes the AI assistant much more useful for complex questions or when you want to see the detailed responses. Now let's talk about gaming. I didn't expect this, but gaming on the Z Fold 7 is actually incredible. You get the same Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset as the S25 Ultra, but not the best performance I've seen with this chipset. The 8-inch display with a good gaming controller feels almost like a Nintendo Switch experience, I mean the latest one. Games like Call of Duty Mobile, Diablo Immortal, or any strategy game just hits different on this big screen. Plus you can stream Xbox games or use cloud gaming services, and suddenly you have a portable gaming powerhouse with this device. I really can't complain about the Z Fold 7 because I love the gaming experience on here. So let's address the elephant in the room. $2,000 is a lot of money. That's rent money, that's vacation money. So who actually should buy this smartphone? You should only consider this if you're genuinely excited about foldable tech and you want the best one from Samsung so far, especially considering the software experience. Also consider this if you do a lot of multitasking on your smartphone, you consume a lot of content like videos, reading, or maybe gaming on your smartphone. You can also consider this if you're coming from an older smartphone, maybe 3+ years old, and you want something truly different. The last person to consider this device is someone who has disposable income and won't stress about the cost. Now let's talk about the person who has to skip this device. You should skip the Z Fold 7 if you're happy with your current smartphone. You rarely use your smartphone for more than calls, text, and basic apps, and also if this price makes you uncomfortable. You also shouldn't buy this if you want the absolute best battery life on a smartphone or you rely heavily on the S Pen functionality. So after 2 weeks of using the Galaxy Z Fold 7, I can honestly say this is the first foldable smartphone from Samsung that feels like the future we were promised. It's not perfect. The battery life could be better, it's expensive, and it wobbles on flat surfaces. But for the first time, the compromises almost feel worth it. This doesn't feel like a novelty device anymore. It feels like a genuine evolution of what a smartphone can be. I'd rate this maybe an 8 or maybe an 8.5 out of 10. The S Pen support and a good battery life would have taken it up to 10 for me. But let me know in the comment section below, are you team foldables or are you sticking to the regular brick smartphones? And if you've been waiting for the right foldable smartphone, you really need to consider this device. Also check out my day in the life with the Xiaomi 15 Ultra in Doha, Qatar here. Catch you in that video. Day.